It was a quiet Sunday evening when the Carter family was seen for the last time. Neighbors watched as the lights inside their beautiful suburban home slowly went dark. Nothing seemed unusual. No screams, no signs of a struggle, no indication that anything was wrong. By Monday morning, Ethan Carter had failed to appear at his company headquarters. His wife, Olivia, missed an important appointment. Their 2 young sons never arrived at school. At first, people assumed the family had taken an unexpected trip. But as days turned into weeks, a terrifying question began to spread across the town. Where had they gone? Their cars remained parked in the driveway. Their phones stopped responding. Their bank accounts showed no activity. And inside the family home, investigators would later discover something that suggested the Carters had never planned to leave at all. What began as a routine missing person case would soon unravel into a nightmare of greed, betrayal, and a carefully hidden conspiracy that shocked an entire nation. Because someone knew exactly what happened to the Carter family. And they were determined to make sure the truth stayed buried forever. Before we uncover the truth behind this chilling case, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a mystery. To understand what happened, we first need to understand who the Carters were. Ethan Carter was a 42-year-old entrepreneur who had built one of the region's fastest-growing logistics companies. Friends described him as ambitious, disciplined, and fiercely protective of his family. His wife, Olivia Carter, was known for her warmth and kindness. Their sons, Lucas and Noah, filled the home with energy and laughter. Living with them was Olivia's mother, Margaret Reed, a strong-willed grandmother who would do anything to protect her family. To neighbors and friends, the Carters seemed to have everything. A successful business, a beautiful home, a close-knit family. But appearances can be deceiving. Because while the Carters were building their future, someone else was quietly watching from the shadows. And soon, their lives would be changed forever. The mastermind, Vincent Blackwood. At first glance, Vincent Blackwood appeared to be a successful businessman. In public, he was charming, well-dressed, and respected. He attended charity events, mingled with influential people, and projected the image of a man who had achieved everything through hard work and intelligence. But behind the polished exterior was a man whose empire was quietly collapsing. Years earlier, Vincent had built a fortune through risky investments and questionable business deals. For a while, it worked. Money flowed in, and his reputation grew. Then, everything began to unravel. Several major investments failed. Hidden debts mounted. Private lenders started demanding repayment. Business partners abandoned him. By the time anyone noticed trouble, Vincent was already millions of dollars in debt. Desperate to maintain his lifestyle and protect his reputation, he began searching for a way out. That was when his attention turned to Ethan Carter.
Unlike Vincent, Ethan's company was thriving. Carter Global Logistics had secured lucrative international contracts and was expanding rapidly. To Vincent, Ethan represented everything he had lost: success, respect, financial security. What began as professional jealousy slowly evolved into obsession. Vincent convinced himself that Ethan didn't deserve what he had. As his financial situation worsened, he became fixated on acquiring Carter Global Logistics. At first, he considered legitimate methods, including partnership offers and investment proposals. Ethan rejected them all. The rejection humiliated Vincent. In his mind, Ethan had become more than a business rival. He became the symbol of every failure Vincent refused to accept responsibility for. Over time, Vincent's goal changed. He no longer wanted to compete with Ethan. He wanted to replace him. Unknown to Ethan, Vincent began gathering information about the Carter family, their routines, their finances, and the structure of the company. Every detail became part of a growing plan. But money was only part of the motivation. Vincent feared exposure. Several of his past business dealings contained secrets that could destroy him if revealed. During a private business transaction, Ethan had unknowingly discovered information that connected Vincent to a network of illegal financial activities. Vincent never learned exactly what Ethan knew, but the possibility terrified him. Now he faced two threats: a successful rival standing in the way of his ambitions, and a man who might possess information capable of destroying everything he had left. To Vincent Blackwood, there was only one solution: make Ethan Carter disappear. What Vincent didn't realize was that greed, paranoia, and desperation would soon set in motion a chain of events far beyond his control. For months, Vincent watched from a distance, studying every aspect of the Carter family's life. He learned their schedules, their habits, their vulnerabilities. And when he finally believed he had enough information, he began putting together a team. A team that would help carry out a plan from which there could be no return. How Vincent Blackwood chose the Carter family. Vincent Blackwood did not choose the Carter family by accident. In fact, Ethan Carter first came to his attention during a logistics conference, nearly 2 years before the family's disappearance. At the time, Carter Global Logistics was one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. Ethan had built a reputation for securing major contracts that larger competitors failed to obtain. Vincent initially viewed Ethan as nothing more than a successful businessman. But as Vincent's own financial troubles worsened, he became increasingly interested in Ethan's company. The more he researched, the more attractive the target became. Carter Global Logistics was privately owned. Most important decisions rested with Ethan. There were no outside shareholders to complicate matters. No corporate board capable of quickly taking control if something happened to him. To Vincent, the company appeared vulnerable.
But the business itself wasn't the only thing that caught his attention. The Carter family lived a highly predictable life. Every morning, Ethan followed nearly the same routine. The children attended the same schools. Olivia regularly visited the same locations. Margaret frequently spent afternoons with friends in nearby neighborhoods. Their schedules rarely changed. Vincent believed predictable routines created opportunities. As his interest grew, he began collecting information. Public records, social media posts, business interviews, news articles, charity event photographs, anything that helped him better understand the family. Over time, a disturbing picture began to form. The Carters were successful, trusted, visible, and perhaps most importantly, they felt safe. That sense Vincent believed he could exploit. The family relied heavily on routine. They trusted familiar faces. They rarely suspected danger. And because Ethan preferred handling problems privately, Vincent believed any warning signs might go unnoticed. Then, Vincent discovered something that changed everything. During a routine business transaction, Ethan unknowingly gained access to information connected to one of Vincent's hidden financial operations. At first, Vincent wasn't sure how much Ethan knew, but uncertainty became fear. Fear became paranoia, and paranoia convinced Vincent that Ethan represented a threat. From that moment forward, the Carters were no longer simply a target of opportunity. They became the center of Vincent's growing obsession. What began as financial desperation had evolved into something far more dangerous. Because Vincent was no longer thinking like a businessman. He was thinking like a man with everything to lose. For months, Vincent gathered information from a distance. He studied the family's routines, their habits, their movements, and eventually, he reached a terrifying conclusion. He knew exactly when he would make his move. The final 72 hours before the Carter family disappears. 72 hours before, Ethan receives an unexpected phone call during a business meeting. Witnesses later recall that the call visibly unsettled him. That evening, Olivia notices Ethan reviewing old company records long after midnight. Meanwhile, Margaret mentions seeing an unfamiliar face at a local cafe. She dismisses it as a coincidence. Clue left behind. A handwritten note is found on Ethan's desk after the disappearance. Investigators initially believe it relates to routine business matters. 48 hours before, Ethan cancels 2 meetings without explanation. A trusted family friend visits the Carter home. The visit appears completely ordinary at the time. Lucas tells a classmate that his father has seemed distracted and worried lately. Olivia attempts to ask Ethan what is bothering him, but he changes the subject. A voicemail remains unopened on Ethan's phone.
Detectives do not consider it important until much later. 24 hours before. The family attends a community event and appears perfectly normal. Photographs show them smiling and interacting with friends. Several witnesses later remark that Ethan seemed unusually alert, as if he was watching for something. That night, a heated private conversation takes place between Ethan and an unknown person. No one knows what was said. Clue left behind. A receipt from an otherwise ordinary business errand later becomes a key piece of evidence. The final evening. The Carter family returns home. Neighbors report nothing unusual. The house lights switch off at their normal time. Everything appears routine. Their vehicles remain where they were. Personal belongings are left behind. No obvious signs of a struggle are discovered. Investigators initially believe the family may have left voluntarily. They are wrong. Early mystery questions. Why was Ethan suddenly canceling meetings? Who made the phone call that disturbed him? Why did the family friend visit shortly before the disappearance? What information had Ethan recently discovered? Why were so many clues hidden in plain sight? The answers would not emerge for years.
If you're enjoying this investigation, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications as we uncover the truth behind this mystery.
As news of the Carter family's disappearance spread, concern quickly turned into fear. Neighbors described the family as friendly, responsible, and deeply involved in the community. Many struggled to believe they would leave without telling anyone. One neighbor recalled seeing the family's vehicles parked exactly where they had always been. Another remembered that the house appeared completely normal on the final evening. Employees at Carter Global Logistics were equally shocked. Ethan had missed important meetings before, but never without warning. When several days passed without contact, staff began worrying that something serious had happened. Friends and relatives launched their own search efforts. Social media pages dedicated to finding the family appeared almost overnight. As media coverage intensified, theories began circulating online. Some believed Ethan had uncovered a major corporate fraud and gone into hiding. Others suspected financial trouble. A few claimed the family had secretly relocated overseas. More extreme theories suggested organized crime, witness protection, or a carefully planned disappearance. With each passing week, public speculation grew. But none of the theories explained the evidence investigators were beginning to uncover. During the first month, detectives worked around the clock. The family's home showed no obvious signs of violence. However, several discoveries quickly caught investigators' attention. A handwritten note found on Ethan's desk. An unopened voicemail on his phone records. a receipt from an otherwise ordinary business errand, a series of canceled meetings in the days leading up to the disappearance. At first, none appeared connected. Investigators also discovered that Ethan had quietly hired a private investigator weeks before vanishing. This became the first major breakthrough. But not every lead proved useful. One witness reported seeing the family at a train station hundreds of miles away. The sighting generated national headlines. Security footage later proved it was a different family. Another tip claimed Ethan had transferred large sums of money to offshore accounts. Financial investigators eventually determined the transfers were routine business transactions. For weeks, detectives chased false leads. Yet hidden among them were clues pointing toward a much darker explanation. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered secrets that complicated the case. The first involved Ethan himself. Detectives learned he had recently become concerned about unusual activity surrounding his business. Because he told almost no one, investigators initially wondered whether Ethan had become involved in something illegal. The suspicion consumed valuable time. Then, attention shifted to Olivia. Friends revealed that she had become worried about Ethan's behavior during the weeks before the disappearance. Some investigators speculated the marriage may have been under strain. That theory also proved misleading. Meanwhile, detectives discovered that a trusted family friend had visited the Carter home shortly before the disappearance. The friend appeared cooperative and helpful. Nothing seemed suspicious, at least not at first. Investigators also uncovered evidence that Vincent Blackwood's businesses were experiencing serious financial difficulties. Yet, because Vincent maintained a respectable public image, he remained low on the suspect list. The deeper detectives looked, the more confusing the case became. Everyone seemed to be hiding something. But none of the secrets appeared significant enough to explain an entire family vanishing without a trace. What detectives didn't realize was that the most important secret had not yet been discovered. And when it finally emerged, it would change the investigation forever. Hidden inside thousands of pages of business records was a clue investigators had overlooked from the very beginning. For nearly 2 years, the investigation appeared frozen. Then a retired records clerk reviewing archived company files noticed something investigators had overlooked from the beginning. Among thousands of pages of business records was a series of unusual transactions linking several companies that appeared unrelated. One company had indirect ties to Vincent Blackwood. At first, the discovery seemed insignificant, but detectives soon uncovered something even more important. Investigators re-examined surveillance footage collected during the early stages of the case. In the background of footage taken near a business district, they spotted a vehicle connected to one of Vincent's associates. The vehicle appeared in multiple locations connected to the case. Suddenly, separate clues that had never made sense together began forming a pattern. The handwritten note, the canceled meetings,
The unexplained phone call. The visit from the family friend. For the first time, detectives believed they were looking at a coordinated conspiracy rather than a voluntary disappearance. The case had finally turned. As investigators assembled the evidence, a disturbing picture emerged. Vincent Blackwood's financial situation had become far worse than anyone realized. At the same time, he became convinced that Ethan Carter had discovered information capable of exposing damaging secrets from Vincent's past. Fear gradually evolved into obsession. Obsession became desperation. Over time, Vincent began relying on a small circle of associates who... What started as an attempt to protect himself spiraled into a chain of events he could no longer control. The Carter family disappeared during this period of growing paranoia. In the months that followed, Vincent and his associates made several critical mistakes. Contradictory statements, financial records that failed to match their explanations, unexpected witnesses, small details that seemed meaningless on their own, but became significant when viewed together. Piece by piece, investigators reconstructed the timeline. The truth was far more tragic than anyone had imagined. The disappearance was not voluntary. The Carter family had become victims of a conspiracy driven by greed, fear, and desperation. Once detectives focused on Vincent Blackwood, the investigation accelerated. Investigators began interviewing former business partners, employees, and associates. Several individuals who had previously remained silent started cooperating. New evidence emerged from sources detectives had never expected. As pressure mounted, Vincent publicly denied any involvement. Privately, however, his inner circle began falling apart. Former associates contradicted one another. Documents surfaced that challenged earlier explanations. Detectives followed every lead. Each discovery narrowed the gap. The investigation expanded across multiple cities as authorities searched for additional evidence. For months, the case dominated headlines. Then came the breakthrough detectives had spent years pursuing. Evidence gathered from multiple sources finally connected Vincent directly to the conspiracy. An arrest warrant was issued. The man who had once appeared untouchable suddenly found himself at the center of the country's most infamous criminal investigation. The mystery that began with a missing family was finally approaching its conclusion. The arrests sent shockwaves across the country. For years, the disappearance of the Carter family had remained one of the nation's most puzzling unsolved mysteries. Now, the public was finally seeing the investigation reach its dramatic conclusion. Authorities arrested Vincent Blackwood, along with several associates believed to have participated in the conspiracy. News helicopters hovered above courthouses. Reporters gathered outside police headquarters. families across the country followed every development. The trial quickly became one of the most closely watched criminal proceedings in recent memory. Over several months, prosecutors presented thousands of pages of financial records, witness testimony, phone records, business documents, and evidence collected throughout the investigation.
Jurors heard how Vincent's financial problems had steadily worsened. They learned about his growing obsession with Ethan Carter's success. They listened as former associates described how fear, greed, and desperation had gradually driven Vincent toward decisions that would ultimately destroy countless lives. The defense argued that much of the evidence was circumstantial. They claimed investigators had built a theory rather than proving a crime. But prosecutors carefully reconstructed the timeline, piece by piece, clue by clue. Witness by witness, what once appeared to be unrelated events suddenly formed a clear and devastating picture. As the trial neared its conclusion, public attention reached unprecedented levels. Millions followed daily updates. News organizations provided live coverage. The nation waited for the verdict. Then, after days of deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom fell silent. One by one, the verdicts were read aloud. Guilty. 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 Several members of the conspiracy received lengthy prison sentences. Vincent Blackwood received the harshest punishment available under the law. As the verdict was announced, emotional reactions filled the courtroom. Relatives embraced. Investigators reflected on years of work. Many felt justice had finally been served. Yet the victory carried a deep sadness. Nothing could bring the Carter family back. In the months that followed, lawmakers cited the case while discussing corporate transparency, financial crime oversight, and missing person investigations. Universities studied the investigation. Law enforcement agencies used it as a training example.
If you enjoyed this case, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Another mystery is waiting in the next investigation.